My name is Rachel, I'm 36 years old, and for 11 years I thought I knew exactly what my life was. A steady marriage. A quiet house. A husband who kissed me goodbye every morning like clockwork. I used to believe that if something was truly wrong, I'd feel it in my bones before anyone had to tell me. I was wrong. It took one sentence from my doctor, spoken so casually she probably forgot it by lunch, to crack open a decade of my life like an egg. If you think you'd know, stay with me. I thought I would too. It was supposed to be a routine visit. Annual blood work, a few questions about fatigue I'd chalked up to stress, nothing more. Dr. Ellison was scrolling through my chart, the way she always did, half distracted, half present. Then she paused. Since you mentioned your husband's exposure last visit, she said, not even looking up, I want to run one more panel, just to be safe. I laughed, confused. Exposure? I never said anything about that. She glanced at me then, really looked at me, and something shifted in her face. It's in your notes from March, she said carefully. From when you called about a possible contact concern. I hadn't called anyone in March. I hadn't said a word to her about my husband, exposure, or contact of any kind. I don't remember leaving the office. I don't remember walking to my car. I only remember sitting there, hands frozen on the wheel, staring at nothing, while my mind screamed one question over and over. Who called and said they were me? I sat in that parking lot for almost an hour, and my mind did something strange. It didn't panic. It started filing. Every small thing I'd tucked away over 11 years came rushing back at once, like a drawer I'd never let myself fully open. There was the conference in Denver 3 years ago that ran 2 extra days, no explanation, just a text that said stuff came up, don't wait up. There was the year he switched banks and never quite explained why, brushing off my questions with a joke about better interest rates. There was Melissa. He mentioned her the way you mention furniture, present, useful, unremarkable. Melissa handled the reservations. Melissa knows my schedule better than I do. Melissa said I looked tired, told me to take a day off. I used to laugh about it. My husband, so hopeless without his secretary. I never once let myself wonder why a grown man needed another woman to manage the small details of his own life and his phone. Always face down. Always in his pocket, even at home, even in bed. I told myself that was just what 40-something men did now, guarded, distracted, glued to their screens. I told myself a lot of things. I wasn't blind. I want to be clear about that. I just hadn't yet been given a reason strong enough to look. Now I had one. And once you start looking for cracks, you find out the whole wall was never solid at all. I didn't say anything to him that first week. I couldn't. I didn't have words yet, only questions, and every time I opened my mouth to ask something small, how was the Denver trip, really, it came out sounding paranoid even to me, but once I started watching, I couldn't stop. He came home later that month than he had in years, always with an easy explanation ready before I'd even asked. Melissa rescheduled the Hendricks call, so everything got pushed. Melissa again. Always Melissa. She wasn't just his secretary anymore in my mind, she was a presence, woven into every excuse, every late night, every, don't wait up. I started to feel like she lived in our house without ever setting foot in it. When I finally worked up the courage to ask why he needed to text her at 11 at night, he didn't even flinch. Rachel, it's work. You're doing this thing again where you spiral over nothing. That was his favorite phrase now, this thing you do. As if my questions were a symptom, a flaw in me, rather than a reasonable response to a decade of small inconsistencies stacking into something larger. He said it enough times that I started to believe him. Maybe I was spiraling. Maybe I was the problem, the anxious wife inventing shadows out of a marriage that was actually fine. I stopped asking questions out loud. I just kept filing them away, quietly, the way I'd learned to do with everything else. I stopped asking him questions and started asking the house instead. It began small, logging into the joint bank account late at night, scrolling past grocery runs and gas fill-ups until I found it, a recurring transfer, same amount, same day every month, to an account I didn't recognize. Not an affair-sized expense. A family-sized one. Rent-sized. School-sized, then the coat. I was looking for a receipt, nothing more, when a card fell out of his jacket pocket, pastel, cheerful, a cartoon bear on the front. Inside, in handwriting that wasn't his, happy birthday to the best dad in the world. Love, the kids. Plural. Kids. Not a niece's birthday, not a friend's child. His kids. I called my sister that night, and I didn't cry, which surprised us both. I just said, I need your help finding something, and I need you to not ask me why yet. She didn't ask twice. Together we traced the transfers to an address 20 minutes from his office, found a name, Melissa Hartley, attached to a lease, and a school directory listing 2 children with his last name folded quietly into hers. I found a lawyer 3 towns over, somewhere he'd never think to look, and sat in her office reciting facts like a woman reading someone else's diary aloud. She told me what I already suspected. This wasn't just betrayal, it was fraud, concealment, years of shared finances built on a lie. The night I printed the documents at home, I heard his key in the door 2 minutes before the last page finished, and I stood frozen by the printer, listening to my own heartbeat outrun the machine. For 3 weeks, I carried the folder like a live wire, tucked behind old tax documents in a filing cabinet he never touched. Every night I told myself, tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll say something, tomorrow I'll end this. But tomorrow kept arriving with the same paralyzing math attached to it, the house we'd bought together, the joint accounts, the version of us his parents adored at every holiday dinner. Detonating this meant detonating all of it, and some nights I wasn't sure I was brave enough to stand in that wreckage. Then, one Sunday, I came home from the store to find him in the study, rifling through the same cabinet, looking for a warranty on the water heater. My folder sat 2 files away from his hand. I stood in the doorway holding grocery bags, watching him flip past manila folder after manila folder, my whole future balanced on which one he pulled next. Found it, he said, holding up a stapled receipt, oblivious. I smiled and said something about dinner. But that night, lying beside him, I understood with total clarity I couldn't wait for the perfect moment anymore. I had to make one. I chose our 11th anniversary dinner, the one his mother had been planning for weeks, complete with the good china and a toast she'd already written on an index card. 20 people sat around that table, wine glasses lifted, waiting for him to say something warm and predictable. Instead, I stood up first. Before you toast us, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I think everyone should actually know what we're celebrating. I set the folder on the table between the flowers and the untouched bread basket. Financial statements. The lease. The birthday card with its cartoon bear. A printed photo from the school directory, 2 children, his last name stitched quietly into another woman's life. Her name is Melissa Hartley, I said, watching his face drain of color in real time. She's not just his secretary. She's the mother of his 2 children. Ryan and Ava. 6 and 4. The silence that followed had weight to it, physical, crushing. His mother's hand froze halfway to her wine glass. His father's jaw tightened. Someone's fork clattered against a plate. That's not, he started, but the words had nowhere to go, no lie big enough to cover documents already spread across white linen. Rachel, let me explain to them, I said. I already know. Across the table, his college friend Daniel let out a low, disbelieving breath. And when I glanced toward the doorway, I realized Melissa herself had just arrived, invited months ago as a work colleague, now frozen mid-step, staring at the same table I was, her face caught somewhere between panic and the sudden, sinking understanding that her secret hadn't been a secret at all. The dinner ended in chaos, but the days after ended in something quieter and far more satisfying, collapse. His mother didn't speak to him for 2 weeks. His father, a man of few words, said only one thing before leaving that night: "I raised you better than this." Mutual friends who'd known us as a couple for over a decade started quietly pulling away from him, the way people do when a story gets too messy to stay neutral in. At his office, whispers moved faster than any memo: a married man, 2 secret children, a secretary turned second family. He was placed on leave within the month, officially, pending review, unofficially finished. Melissa didn't escape it either. Her name was out now, attached to his in every version of the story, and whatever quiet arrangement they'd built for years collapsed under the same light. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I hadn't detonated my life along with his. Months before that dinner, I'd already moved my savings into an account of my own, already met with my lawyer twice more, already secured documentation proving years of financial deception. He walked into that anniversary dinner thinking he had a wife to manage. He left it realizing he had nothing left to threaten, and even less to control. The divorce moved faster than I expected, mostly because there was nothing left for him to fight with. The paper trail I'd built spoke louder than any argument he tried to make, and within 4 months, I walked out of that courtroom with the house, half of everything he'd hidden, and something I hadn't expected to reclaim so easily: my own name, spoken without his attached to it. I took a job I'd once talked myself out of, at a firm across town that had nothing to do with him, his family, or the life we'd built on quiet lies. I redecorated the bedroom first, painted the walls a color he always hated. Some mornings I still catch myself waiting for the sound of his key in the door, and then I remember I changed the locks months ago. I am 36 years old, and for the first time in 11 years, my life belongs entirely to me. People ask me sometimes if I regret waiting as long as I did before confronting him. I don't. I needed that silence to build something he couldn't talk his way out of. If I've learned anything, it's this: your instincts will always speak quieter than his denials, but they're rarely wrong. So I'll leave you with the same question that started all of this for me. If your doctor asked you one small, offhand question, the kind that unravels everything, would you have said nothing to? Tell me in the comments. I want to know I wasn't the only one.